I suggest you go down to the Natural History Museum, and they're faced by a question. Do you believe in global warming or don't you? And I plugged into the waves last night before I left to come down here. We don't believe in global warming are winning this argument. It's happening just down there. And if you go and see the scandalous bit of advertising that's been done in the Natural History Museum, you really will be ashamed of science. Mid-August 2009, right in the middle of the BBC's promised barbecue summer, the University of East Anglia's Climate Research Unit disclosed that it had destroyed the raw data for its global surface temperature records because of an alleged lack of storage space. Draw your own conclusions, sabotage or desperation. Between 1969 and 1996, I was on telly. The BBC, rapidly followed by ITV, gave me free global reign to inform the world about botany, natural history and the environment. My popularity on TV brought me very many accolades. I was the second person in the world to get his picture on the front of Nature. And the first one was not George Monbiot, it happened to be Charles Darwin. The caption was, "Science is fun." And back in those days it was, and I regularly got my research papers published in that august journal. I also was invited to become trustee, president, vice president and patron of many NGOs. Then the rot set in. Two colleagues, Julian Pettifer and Robin Page, were publicly sacked by the BBC, in essence because they could no longer be viewed as non-biased in their opinions. I can only take it that I fell into that category because from that point on, my career on TV came to an abrupt end. Since that time onwards, anyone who stuck their heads above the anti-wind or anti-global warming line have been subject to vilification, not to scientific debate. The next slide, please. Enough about me, down to the proof that there is no evidence of carbon dioxide being either a poison or that it could cause a warming Armageddon. This comes straight from the real science, peer-reviewed over the past 232 years, thanks to Newton's Principia. And at Durham University we have two first editions of that, and I suggest all you scientists go and read it. Fast forward to a really famous face. Even at the age of 76, which I am, when I see this picture, my temperature goes up, followed by the amount of CO2 I breathe into the atmosphere. Never the other way round. Now, thanks to the study of a series of ice cores, this appears to be an inconvenient truth for the global warming industry, and that is exactly what it is. It's an industry. It is not science. Al Gore tried to scare the world by using ice core data to say that because there was a correlation between atmospheric CO2 and the world's average temperature, carbon dioxide made the temperature of the world rise, threatening life on Earth. Real data from the much celebrated Vostok ice cores paint a very, very different picture. Up goes the temperature, followed by a rise in CO2, flattening Al Gore's dreams of hedging his funds. More troubles were ahead, especially when independent researchers publicly pointed out that the crucially important pieces of the warmer's evidence were based on statistical analysis that was false. This is malpractice. What have we heard about it in the papers, in the BBC? Absolutely nothing. And that's just for starters. There was a medieval warm period, not just in Europe, and please note that for a few centuries before that, it was warm enough for the Romans to produce red wine on the borders of Scotland. The global warmers did their best to hide this inconvenient truth. But in 2006, Dr. David Bellamy of the University of Oklahoma gave testimony to the US Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works, stating that after he had published a paper on borehole temperatures based on historical data and in the journal Science, he received an email from a major researcher in the area of climate change which said, we have got to get rid of the medieval warm period, and of course they did. Michael Mann, one of the divas of global warming, and his colleagues had done just that. They published a reconstruction of past temperatures from AD 1000 to the present, in which the medieval period conveniently vanished. Malpractice again, not science. Model flags were waved aloft, and the sandwich board modellers joined in with cries of denier and worse. I am a denier and proud to be. The next slide, please. Checking the evidence over the past 5,000 years, it shows us there have been 3 warm periods. We've already seen this graph, when it was warmer than today, and yet the Earth survived. Conclusion, climate change is natural and warmer periods occur without human CO2 emissions being the cause. Now take a look at what has been happening over the last decade. World temperatures is falling as CO2 rises, with China and India stoking up in the coal shed. Conclusion, increases in CO2 rarely coincide with rises in Earth temperature, so how can CO2 be the driver of global warming, let alone climate change? At this juncture, the warmers began to see the lights of the sceptics' train rushing down their tunnel of hype. Those with most to lose began to drop the term global warming, replacing it with climate change, which of course we all know has been happening since the first living thing made of carbon was there to take down the evidence. In this way, they gave themselves a spurious licence to carry on frightening law-abiding citizens with waterlogged stores at the tipping point just around the corner. Meanwhile, NERC's populist, and it's a wonderful publication, Planet Earth, sidestepped even this troublesome term by blaming everything on environmental change. My goodness. Really very complex stuff, with at least 75 major temperature swings in the past 4,500 years, all in great part explicable by solar cycles, volcanic activity, and those little rascals El Niño and La Niña. Let's just look at what is happening to our warming oceans. The recent trend is cooling, not the warming predicted by legions of modellers and their models. Since 2007, the Arctic cap has been increasing in area back towards the normal again. Oh yes, the normal Northwest Passage has been navigable on a number of occasions since 1850, as it was this year, thanks in great part to prevailing winds changing direction, and that blows the ice about. It doesn't melt, it blows it about. Scientists, and the scientists who put these scholars' remark out in things, estimate that the last time the passage was ice-free as it is now was between 5,000 and 7,000 years ago. Wow! When Britain had just become an island thanks to temperatures 3 degrees Celsius higher than they are today. And what were they doing? They were actually melting the ice.